Zoom does not allow us. Oh, we're live. Hey, on Zoom. Okay, hello and welcome everyone. This is The Grill with T. Adeyemo, Tyson, Boyce, and Mr. Augustine Marah. And tonight we're here to talk about Mr. Hey, on Zoom. Okay, hello. We're here to talk about Mr. Marah's priorities. Just to get us started, you look uncomfortable. Are you okay, sir?
I am very comfortable.
This is your comfortable face.
Well, I'm at home. I can't feel more comfortable anywhere else than home.
Fair enough. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, thank you very much, T. And partner, what's the name again? If you can remind me.
Tyson.
Oh, Tyson. Sorry, Tyson. Yeah. Yes.
No worries.
So, yes, my name is Augustine. I have been in this city for the past 40 years. And I have always been involved in community activities. That is, I've been involved in non-profit organizations, in various community activities, whether they're students' activities at the University of Alberta, and in the communities, within the African communities, within churches, and within the Black community. And I have also been active in the Mennonite Center, Catholic Social Services, and I have volunteered in campaigning for potential mayors, and the MLAs, as well as members of parliament. And all these years, I have been very busy, and there are very few people of my age that I see out there doing what I'm doing now. Most of my colleagues have retired from doing what I'm doing in organizations, in nonprofit organizations. So yes, this is my background as far as Edmonton is concerned. And it is this backdrop that encouraged me to say, I have been involved enough, I have contributed enough, and in my brochure, that is in my campaign brochure, my introduction says, I paid it forward. So in other words, I didn't just decide to jump into politics today, not having done anything for the city. And in one of the videos I have recorded, I made it abundantly clear that I did what I did because I enjoyed doing it. And I know I was helping other people for common good, for the welfare of mankind, because I'm somebody who cares to make a difference in my own little way. And each of us can make a difference, regardless of how little, because volunteering is actually one of the best things one can do in a society. I mean, just imagine, we just had federal elections. Most of the people who do the work are volunteers. They are not paid. So this is why I decided to join, to throw my hat into the mayoral candidacy.
Okay, that sounds really good. But you're running against people like Ms. Watson, Kim Krishna, Mrs. Sori, and these people have like experience upon experience. I'm just wondering, I know you're an entrepreneur and school administrator, a bilingual teacher, a committed community builder. You're also a writer and a family man. I'm just wondering if your experience can match that of maybe Mrs. Sori or the other candidates you're up against. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me tell you one thing, T. What other people have done should not hold any human being back from what they think they need to do or they want to do. Yes, I respect the value of experience in any field. Nobody can underestimate or underrate any experience somebody does in any field. But you must know, or you should know, and you do know that people do change careers. What do you call her? Theresa May was a geography school teacher. She became the Prime Minister of Britain. Ronald Reagan was an actor. He became the President of the United States. Here in Alberta, Ralph Klein was a journalist. He got into politics very late when Mayor Decor was alive. They were both liberals, and he was mayor of Calgary, and then the co was mayor of Edmonton, and I campaigned for him. And Ralph Klein became the premier of Alberta. So you can't say because other people have been there that you should be intimidated. After all, I come from a position as a teacher at all levels of education. I'm not going to talk much about my own experience in education because it is not relevant here, directly relevant. But the fact that somebody can come from one humble job and go into council and become somebody really important, it means we can all do it if we have the will. So, and I'm not intimidated by the fact that some of them have been in council for 4 years or 8 years. If I say, well, because somebody has been in council, then I'm not going to run. Yes, I may not have the popular name, okay? Because in politics, I think name recognition is extremely important. That's why I'm doing everything that I can to be known. And this is why I was one of the most disappointed when the city decided not to sponsor any forums, public forums. Because as a teacher, if I may use the expression, I have taught social studies. I've studied the history of the formation of this city on the 1st of September 1905. No public forums have ever been canceled in over 130 something years. Why this year? And the excuse they gave was, oh, the viewership is too small, too little. I don't think that was a very good reason at all. I wasn't satisfied.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump in.
I'm not gonna jump in actually. So you're telling us, while I agree that anyone from any background can become a politician, you just got to get elected. But to do that, you need a coalition. Now, so he's got his, Mike's got his. What's your coalition? What is Mayor Marah's coalition? Who are you representing? What are you bringing to the forefront?
Well, since you mentioned since you mentioned Sohi came from driving.
I'm more concerned about your coalition, not Sohi's. We get to ask him that later.
No, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Well, I have people with me that are supporting me.
Mm-hmm.
I use the base of my own community. You know, I was the founding president of my own community from Sierra Leone, and we have quite a few people and people who are very competent, working in different fields. Okay, some are social workers, university professors, and people who work for the government. So those people with their ideas and experience, I have enough support. Okay, I may not have known but if you don't mind me mentioning, I have campaigned for people who were mayors that are still alive, and I contacted them and say, I'm going to throw my hat in the mayoral candidacy.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I don't know whether that answers your question. I do have a coalition of people who are helping me out.
Yep. No, it sounds reasonable. If you want to jump into your platform a bit, now we discussed previously that your website doesn't have quite your platform points, but what's your first platform point? What is the broad category in which your idea?
The category is
we'll start with that.
What I call revitalization and diversification. And right. I am suggesting that the three major cities of this province, Edmonton, Red Deer, and Calgary, should be joined by a rapid rail. Now, that idea has been in existence for quite a while, and people keep saying it is too expensive. But you know what will happen? The more we wait, the more expensive it will become. Now, I use my personal experience, and I'm using it. I lived in Europe. When you go to Europe, traveling within Europe is one of the easiest things. And you know what? Edmonton and Calgary form the economic base, okay, of Western Canada. So by joining these two cities, there will be a lot of not only industrial, but business and even educational progress within the city. And we will encourage more tourism for our country. More people will come to Alberta because they know moving from Edmonton to Calgary will be very easy. Even within us here, you can go to Calgary for a business meeting and come back within 2 hours.
Now,
so that's my first point.
Yeah, fair enough. So, but you've correctly mentioned that the province has been looking at that corridor for, who knows, it's I just looked up real quick. It's 1975. We've been investing in feasibility studies between them for the last literally 4 decades on that idea of connecting Edmonton and Calgary with a high-speed rail system. Now, do you disagree with the feasibility studies that have been done? Like we're talking, one was done in 2004, one was done in 2013. And every time we do this, they always recommend that it's just there's not enough people in that corridor yet to do something that heavy. Whereas in Europe, you've got, more than 3 million people crammed into the same density or area. So do you disagree with those reports or what's your take?
I don't disagree. The only thing that I would add is that instead of the cities and the provinces and the federal government challenging that project, I think we can bring in business. That's why we have what they call municipal, business partnerships with, our municipalities can,
Yep.
work
and
with,
these studies do include like profitability metrics, and then essentially it just says it isn't profitable. So how are you going to entice these businesses to get on board with a project that study after study is telling you it's not profitable?
If we all think of the long-term gains and forget about the immediate, I don't know whether I will call it losses. Once the infrastructure is built, okay, eventually the money will come out. So, but if we don't start, the more we postpone, if we wait until our cities have our 2 or 3 cities have more than 10 million people, we are going to wait forever. And if we're talking about the environment, having that fast rail or the tube to Calgary will save our environment, because we will not be driving our cars. It will be much cheaper to take the train and then save the environment, not using gas, individual cars driving up and down. So I believe there are more advantages than disadvantages. If only we can consider the fact that it is an investment that will pay in the long run, not in the short term gain. So so I believe that we should not give up on that.
One follow-up question, Aboriginal lands that would be in the way of this corridor, how would you help or manage that?
One of the things we should always consider doing is talking to the people that are the stakeholders, okay? I think if we negotiate with the Aboriginal lands owners or people who are caring for the land, I don't think they will object, because they too will be using the same services. See, we're not going to be taking advantage of them. As a matter of fact, I would suggest maybe an underground rail would be too expensive, but building one like a sky train will not affect in the short run while doing the construction. It will affect the parts of where it will be built, but in the long run, everything will come back to normal.
Okay. Go for it, T. Your turn.
Yeah, sir, could I just explore this idea? We've got rising inflation, the pandemic has created untold levels of unemployment, and you want to build a rail from Edmonton to Calgary. I'm just wondering, in the order of putting food on table, how important is this priority to the needs of everyday Albertans or Edmontonians, actually?
It's a platform I'm putting forward. If I become the mayor of Edmonton, of course we have to prioritize, what is most important. We feature those areas of life that are of urgent need, okay? Like you're talking about putting food on the table. I have another, my second point, if I may, just join the two together, okay? I am sure that Edmonton has one of the best natural resources in terms of the river valley. We have pristine green forest on both sides of the river, and about 50 kilometers from north to south. What I think we should be doing is to use the resources that we have, combined with the, with the cultural art that we have. Our theaters, Windspear Theatre, the Botanical Gardens, the University of Alberta Devonian Botanical Gardens, and our festivals. If we can use those things at a maximum. We will attract tourists, we will make more money, and we ourselves, the citizens of Edmonton, most of us will never have money to go pay cruise ships to go to the Bahamas. We can use our river more profitably, but without polluting it. So I believe there are many ways we can raise funds to pay attention to the things or to the needs that we have in our city. I'm not trying to cry down the idea of the railway. Yes, it is expensive, but of course, I will look and work with council. And one of the points I'm also suggesting is that we have a think tank of older people.
Tyson, listen, you're more experienced with this. You think in 4 years a rail service between here and Calgary would, let's assume you become mayor, would it take 4 years to get this done or more than 4 years?
In my opinion, if Mr. Marah were to enact such a project, he would see the start of it perhaps, but not the realization.
And I realized that. Thank you, Tyson, because I even said that in my speech that I may not see the end of the construction, but the idea is when you are a leader, you want to be somebody who sort of looks forward, looks ahead, and it is not for your own individual aggrandizement. You're thinking about the future generations. When you have children, you think about, and you live with people. The younger generations will be the ones to enjoy it. Because those of us, for example, those of us who came, we met, a lot of things had been, some foundations had already been laid. And that's why we who come, we also continue to work on those foundations. So even if I make a suggestion or insist on having a rail, we may not do it. If we have the money, we can do it, but it doesn't have to be under my own 4-year term. I may get, if I win, I may get a second term.
Yes, I'd like to get into real problems that we're facing in Edmonton today, maybe homelessness, the opioid crisis. I love the idea of rail and the 50-kilometer waterway. That's just amazing.
All right.
I'm just thinking,
but we should dive into your second point here. We only got an hour, right?
Yeah, well, the second point I have just mentioned the fact that we have natural and cultural assets. Our natural assets are, when you talk about the River Valley, that's our natural asset. The cultural assets, I want us to invest more in music, in arts and culture, so we can attract talent. We can attract people who will come here, and if they love what they do, what they see, they might want to stay. They will go back and come back and say, hey, this city is a place I want to be in. But if we have a very boring city, when I compare Edmonton, if I look at Edmonton, the whole of Edmonton, I can only compare White Avenue to Grand Allée in the city of Quebec. It's lively, 24 hours. People don't go to bed, they don't sleep. Or some go to bed, others come back and have fun. Those are the things we need to attract people, and we can attract talent that way. So that was the second point in trying to invest in our cultural arts to attract more people to Edmonton, to attract talent. So, and the T mentioned the homelessness, which is a real problem. Now, let me look back when I came in 1981, 40 years ago. There were no shanty, what do you call them? People with tents outside, living, by the River Valley or, down, the River Valley, especially in the winter. It is awful. Our city has grown, has become vibrant. It's a beautiful city, but the homelessness has ballooned. And this is where I think mistakes have been made. I will not point any fingers, but if the people who built the arena had consulted the organizations that have been working for 40 years with the homeless population downtown, more homeless people would not have been displaced. So what I mean is there are non-profit organizations that support the homeless, that support homeless people. They were not consulted. That much I know. If they were consulted, I think somebody would have suggested that the arena should never have been built downtown. It's a beautiful arena. I love it. We all love hockey. However, there was a better place. We have the old airfield.
Where would you have built the arena if you were?
I would have suggested the arena be built in the old municipal airport. And that municipal airport is so polluted that it is not fit for any residential buildings. So, but building the arena there would have given enough place for people to go and work there in the day and then go home.
So one question I have for you is that even before the arena was there, Boyle Street's community services was still in that same region. That serves as sort of a hotspot that you're mentoring. So even though what I'm trying to point out is that even before the arena, this issue was prevalent. So why do you say the arena has made it worse, or why do you say the arena is to blame when this problem was there before?
More people were displaced though, even though the homeless population had been there before. But it became more serious, especially this past winter. You know, there was traffic between the Boyle Street area and the Agricom, where some of the homeless were housed, and they had to walk. Some of them could not pay for any buses to come and have their services downtown. And a lot of people do not want to see them around, unfortunately. These are people, they are part of us. And it is not, I mean, one isolated idea that I'm talking about here. Now, I will talk about the quality of life should be for everybody. In other words, if we care for the homeless, we should find them a better place.
And when you say better place, what do you have like an example or a vision for that? Like, what does that look like under Mayor Marah?
Well, I'll consult with the people who work with the homeless in the first place. You see, I'm coming in as an outsider, so I have to consult with the people who know, who can give us the best answers. That's what we should do. And
have you been having those conversations currently, or?
Pardon?
Have you had those conversations during your campaign?
I have actually had conversations with people who know the city, who were born and raised here, who have been in politics, who have given me advice. I don't have to name those people, but there are people who are watching, who know what is happening. You see, I couldn't have come up with all these ideas that I have if I didn't talk to specific people who know this city more, who grew up here, even before the West End was joined to Edmonton Center as a city. I mean, and Millwoods and Old Scorner, these were all small towns separated. They were not all part of Edmonton. These are the people I'm talking to, I have spoken to and spoken with. I have got all my ideas from people who are experienced. It would be silly of me not to talk to people who know what they're doing. But I've also been here for 40 years. And since I've always been active, I know a lot what is happening. I know the history of a lot of things in Edmonton. But if I may continue now to the third point, I mean, this is the homelessness.
Let's see, you got to follow up. Any questions?
No,
no. For a third point, let's see what the third point's about here.
The third point, that was the homelessness, the third point. The fourth point for me is something totally new. Now, I believe that for us to thrive, we have to consider the value of the young population. They are vibrant, energetic, and they know more technology. Okay? And there are people who have worked in this city as specialists, as experts. So my fourth idea, I don't know whether you can see me but I see something on my screen.
Oh, we can see you.
My fourth idea is the idea of forming a think tank composed of very experienced people in the older generations and the young people. Now, I believe we have to bring in our fold to make decisions that affect our current issues and our future issues. If we leave out the young people, we are not doing them a favor. They will be the biggest losers. So having a think tank that will advise counsel from outside. They're not going to be the elected officers, okay? But I know a lot of things have been done in this city where some people were consulted. Because of the medium we have now of communication, we can use the internet very effectively. So I am advocating to have a think tank. And in fact, even though it's not the question I'm addressing, I will not only think about bringing the young and the old together, but I also believe that even in our technology and innovation, we have to find a way to form a synergy between specialized groups, work with the university.
Yeah, Mr. Marah, I just want to jump in here. I fear that too many think tanks is maybe more layers of admin. Like the city has so many consultants, so many think tanks already, like so many advisory councils.
Give me an example, sorry.
Yeah, sure. An example would be, for example,
there's an advisory council on domestic violence. So many advisory councils, I think.
There's a huge list here, if I may. The Accessibility Advisory Committee, 15 people that are recruited from the civic population. The Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, the Assessment Review Board, Audit Committee, the Edmonton Design Committee, the Edmonton Historical Board. It's all listed on the City of Edmonton's website. And Cividia, which runs the Affordable Housing Program, the Capital Region Housing Corporation, Edmonton Youth Council, the GEF Seniors Housing. There's essentially 22 citizen there's committees that citizens can be appointed to that currently advise council on various matters in the city. So we're curious, when you talk about the think tank, are you just adding another one to this list?
So may I ask one question?
Yeah, go for it.
Are these councils working in isolation?
They are. Each one has their own mandate, correct?
Okay, so you see, my own suggestion would be we have a synergy that will bring those ideas from each of the councils together. Now, let me use the analogy of the human body. One mistake we do when we solve problems, and this is from my experience in administration, in teaching, and as a principal, okay? Let's use the human body as an example. If one part of the human body aches, the whole body suffers, because we do not want to have so many think tanks, but each of them working on their own. We have to bring them together. Maybe find another body or a way of bringing those bodies together with their ideas so that they will make sense. If we work in isolation, the human body, every part, the fingernail is connected to the hair or the toenail. Okay, so if any part of our human body hurts, the whole body hurts. So what I would suggest is form a synergy. Find a way of bringing those ideas together instead of having too many organizations working on their own and they are not talking to each other.
So my follow-up to that isn't that the role of council in their internal committees already? So when there's like for example, the emergency advisor committee or the no, that's not one on the calendar, but yeah. So essentially, each councillor will have a committee that they serve on, and then they hear from all the various portions of the Edmonton city, whether it be the city itself or the advisory boards they set up. Isn't that stringing the ideas together the job of council itself?
Okay, when the council hears those ideas, yes, maybe to answer your question, that may be the reason why there is a council, okay, to listen to all the views that are given by the 22 different organizations or think tanks. Now, when they meet and they hear those ideas, they have the mandate of taking action. But I think they should also consult with the city of Edmonton. Now, where I'm driving at here, when a council makes decisions, there are things that have been done in this city where no plebiscite was held. I have gone out talking to people. I know one thing that I have heard on the West End, the new rail to the West End. the place where it's going to be built, believe it or not, there was a plan more than 75 years ago for access to the West End to be on 107 Avenue. There is no street except 97th Street going northbound. There is no street as wide as 107 Avenue, which could have been used for the rail and for vehicles. You will still have two trains crossing each other or crossing paths and still have enough room for vehicles going west and others coming from the west. Instead, council decided to have the rail pass in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city by the former museum. The houses there, no less than $500,000. So you will be breaking down the houses on whose budget? On the city's budget. When, if I may give a suggestion, this is one thing that I'm telling you, I have gone out with people who know the city better than I do. That railway could have been built from Grant McEwen. Behind Grant McEwen, there's a space there. As when you go as far as the old brewery, you turn a little bit right, and then you go to 107. That space is so wide, and that place is going to be wasted. And you know what? No houses would have been broken down. And that also will have increased the population density in that area, wherever the train is going to pass. You see, spreading the city is going to be very expensive. But if we had had that train pass in that area, that would have been the best place for the city, instead of paying so much, millions, maybe even billions of dollars, breaking expensive houses to pass a railway where it should never have gone. And this is why I say, and I will give you specifically, a lady who lives in that area called me, Mr. Marah, I want you to do something because my own bus has been canceled. And when I called, they have new buses. They said, you call them. They said, when you call for a bus, it will take over 40 minutes or 1 hour. And when they pick you up, they don't drop you off there in your house. They drop you off at a bus stop. You either have to walk or pay a cab. So mistakes have been done. This is why I'm talking about, we're coming to the point of having 22 councils, when 22 think tanks that talk to council, but the council does not reach out to the public and say, what do we need to do in this area? Consult the people who live in that area. They will give you the answers, especially the older generation. And this is why I'm thinking about my own suggestion, having the young and the old, because I don't want the older people to be socialized out of experience. They have experience, they have expertise, they know the city. They could have given better advice than the young people in council.
Okay. Anything to add, T? Otherwise, point number 5.
Emotionally, Tyson, I feel a bit burdened that we're going to get bogged down in so many think tanks and advisory councils and finding whole people to get wisdom from and finding the right young people to put together. So I don't know. It's an incredible idea, Mr. Marah.
The synergy is what I think that will solve the problem. The synergy.
I think you probably need people in tech to find that synergy so everything works seamlessly, so things are not cluttered or clogged up. Because with 22 councils already, 23rd advisory council, you probably need some technicians to help us. Next one, Tyson. That's all right.
Cool. Yeah, point number 5 then, Marah.
Point number 5, I have been a teacher in Edmonton almost all my life, and teachers are frontline workers. But I have also gone to the level of having worked in a group home. And our frontline workers, nurses, the people who clean houses, who clean the streets, who walk on the road, clean the snow, these are the frontline workers. People who go out to give us hot water, okay? These are the frontline workers. And when I look at the history and the areas I have worked in, other than teaching, frontline workers' salaries are very low, or wages. to give one specific example where a lot of immigrants, new immigrants, some of whom may have language barriers, but they work hard. And working at a place where you get $15 an hour, you have a family of 4 or 5 kids, you cannot survive. So you have to work 2 jobs. And this is why I would, if I become the mayor of Edmonton, I would like to become an advocate of frontline workers for better pay. I am not going to, that can include some frontline workers who are still work for the city too. Okay? But of course, budgets have to be made to make sure we can accommodate any changes in salaries or wages. So that's one of my points, the 5th point.
Okay, so how much living wage are you considering? I think the city is on. How much do people get paid right now? What's
in the city?
Wage?
Quite a bit. I'd say probably way more than minimum wage.
I
would say city jobs are one of the highest paid in Edmonton, actually.
What about those who clean the streets or those who clean the city's offices? Are they paid very high?
I wouldn't know about contractors.
Right now per hour. Do you know what the minimum wage is, Mr. Marah?
Isn't it $15 now?
How much do you want to increase it by?
At least $20 an hour.
So what difference?
What difference will it make? $20 an hour?
When you take the taxes off, what is did you work out what the difference
will still be better off than the $15. But the reason why I'm advocating the $20 is that if you work at a minimum wage of $15, you cannot survive. You have to work 2 jobs. And this is where we'll have parents leaving their children with other people, and daycare is expensive unless we have a new daycare system that has been.
So your priority, one of your priorities is to increase minimum wage to $20 an hour. Have you thought of how you're gonna get employers? Have you thought of how you're gonna get employers to pay that?
We negotiate with people. I'm not going to impose anything on anybody. Everything comes with negotiation. We think of the end result. If we can provide a better quality of life for people, if they can only work 1 job and be able to go back home and care for their children, then go to work in the morning, come back at 4, and then go back at night, that's not a good quality of life for parents who are making very little money. And if we have a better quality of life for the parents, we're having a better quality of life for the families as a whole, for the children. Children need supervision.
So question for you, Mr. Marah. So the city of Edmonton currently spends roughly $130 million a year on city contractors. Does Mayor Marah have a position or any opinions regarding that? And the only reason I bring this up is it's more than Toronto, and we're a much smaller city.
You mean contracts like what they call in
consultants, et cetera, et cetera.
We can afford it. Why not?
Fair enough. And since this point number 5, my understanding is you essentially want to do what you can to raise minimum wage. Do you feel that the act of that might make city jobs, or let's say, raising the amount of money that you're paying city employees? Like, I assume because the only thing you can actually control as mayor is what the city itself is paying, right?
Yes.
As opposed to private sector, since that's provincial jurisdiction.
I'll be a negotiator with the private sector. And
so
of course, they may be.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I said negotiate with them. I mean, if they're asking, if maybe they may ask for tax breaks if they have to increase their salaries for their workers. But we always have to look at the overall picture for everybody.
Would a Mayor Marah be willing to lower commercial real estate taxes in exchange for heightened salaries?
Well, we have to look into the details of that. I cannot give you an answer without actually knowing the nitty-gritty of those figures.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to ask some more questions. That's all. All right, what's points number 6? So maybe we'll come back to this one. I feel like there's something we can talk about there.
Now, I am calling for education in terms of, I'm calling for us to have intercultural awareness workshops or seminars among interest groups, starting with the city police. I am in support of the most important group of people or sector of society that keep us safe are the police. What I'm going to suggest, if that is not being done.
Mr. Marah, look, we have about, I think, 19 minutes, I think it is. We need to.
I have only one more point in my.
He's good to go. He's good to go.
I have enough. I think we have enough time to see. I'll be able to finish my point. I'm trying to put details into what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
questions to ask you. So, all right then.
Oh, can I finish this point before I don't want to lose my train of thought?
Yeah, go for it, sir.
Okay. I'm suggesting that we need to have an intercultural awareness workshops for people who are serving the communities, whether it is the police, the firemen, EMS. These are people, in fact, they are frontline workers, but they're the most important group we should care for. And if we care for them, they can care for us. So, but they need education. So there are people with specialized knowledge and skills that can give more education to have people have more openness. Okay? Now, in teaching, there are quite a few people who can learn a lot of things on their own while doing their teacher education. But I think we need to have the police get more intercultural education. And that's why I like neighborhood policing. It's very important. They become your neighbors. They become your friends. You see? So I very much support the idea of working together with the police, and we should not overburden them. I know that when somebody falls down in the street, maybe a drug addict or a drunkard, it is the police that go there. They are not the specialists. We need more social workers, more psychologists who are going to be taking care of these, and then nurses, and then, of course, social workers and EMS personnel who are trained to work with these people. And that's why I think that we should really increase more intercultural awareness through community education and public education. So that's my 6th point.
So question,
Yes.
Do you plan to integrate this type of thinking through, I don't know, not just this particular issue we're talking about, but like the way council acts, and more specifically making policy with respect to issues concerning marginalized and historically underrepresented groups?
Yes, that touches what I was about to talk about, because it has to do with marginalized people, racialized people, religious intolerance. These are issues that are very important. Not just, they are important for the whole community. Okay.
Okay, sure. But how are you planning to, previously we were just talking about your neighborhood policing and all that, but how do you plan to create that culture? How would Mayor Marah set about the steps to create what you're envisioning there?
I think I will work more closely with the police and the people who specialize in those areas of intercultural education.
Okay. And what would you do? Like a workshop, or would it just be like policy? I'm trying to get the mechanism here.
I'm not saying I'll be able to do everything on my own, but
no, of course not. But maybe
I can even be one of the speakers in any police academy training. Okay, to talk about personal experience that I have heard not only in my country, in Europe, and here. Okay, because I come from a background also of policemen. Okay, or policemen rather. Okay, so that's why I value the role of the policeman in our societies.
All right. Your 7th point. Oh, unless T's got something there.
Yeah.
Yes, T.
Is this your solution to inclusion? Is this your answer to solving the problems of a lack of diversity and inclusion? You send public workers to take workshops.
Public education and community education, yes.
So
It's
this
one
is
of
your
the solutions.
answer.
But
Yeah.
What's community education look like to you?
no, like in different organizations, different interest groups, we have places like the Mennonite Center, Edmonton Multicultural Coalition. We have the health, what do you call it, health brokers and Action for Healthy Communities. These are all organizations that can help people to get more acquainted with issues of intercultural education, with racial intolerance or religious intolerance. I think we need to have seminars where people will have more openness to other people. And the idea
do
of
you have
seminars.
data to show that this sort of workshops will work, diversity training will work? Do you have the science to back the data that we put people through these workshops is going to change the way they think? Do you have the data to show us that this will work?
Okay, if I may use a personal example,
You don't
one
have
of the
data.
things, one of the things that happens in society, if you don't know people, you have never met somebody who is different from you, you are very skeptical, you are afraid. But once you get to know them, then you begin to feel more comfortable. Let me tell you my first experience, the first year of teaching in junior high in this city. When I started teaching in junior high, the kids were kind of skeptical, but once they started getting to know me, the kids will come and say, Mr. Marah, can I touch your hair? And they'll pull my hair and they say, oh, look, it's long, it's long. See, when people become comfortable with you, then they get to know you. And once you know them, they know you, then the biases will disappear. But if you don't get close to people, some people are up here, others are down there. What I would even suggest for leaders, the best way to be a leader, talk to the janitors in the morning, greet them as you greet other people. Okay, these are all part of getting to know each other by just personal contact. But those seminars will make it easier for people to come in contact with each other.
But do you think?
And these are not all the answers. There can be more answers. Sorry.
Okay, will that training change behavior though? Is it guaranteed to change people's behavior? It's just guesswork that people's behavior would change when it comes to things like discrimination.
Okay, let me give you another example. At some point in Edmonton, my personal doctor was a Muslim. Because I was teaching English, I knew this person in Ottawa and he moved to Edmonton. But in our discussions, I told him I come from a country where Muslims and Christians don't fight. We don't have any problems. We even organize Ramadan and Christmas. We dance, intermingle without any problems. And then he told me, Augustine, as a Muslim, if I don't believe in Abraham, in Moses, in Mary, and Jesus, I am not a Muslim. I said, do you mean you are not a good Muslim? So when I got to know that, I know now that Muslims are closer to Christians than we all know. So if we get to know these facts, we share the same values, why would we discriminate against them?
I'm just cautious that we have
It's an ignorant person who will attack a woman with a hijab, not knowing that that person wearing a hijab may be a doctor, a nurse that will one day serve them. It is ignorance, but ignorance is based on fear. What I'm trying to say is those workshops are the ones that are one of the best ways for people to get to know each other. It will not change everybody's mind. Maybe biases will always exist.
Point 7, since we're almost there.
Point 7. Having traveled in Europe and North America, almost every city in North America and Europe have a national train or national bus coming downtown the city. When I came to Edmonton, I used to travel from Edmonton to Toronto by train, by via rail. And the train came right downtown. Does that service exist today? We also used to have national bus travel, whereby the buses will come downtown. And one way I think to revitalize our city is to be part of the negotiations. The city cannot solve those problems by itself. Negotiate with those organizations, whether it is VIA Rail, CN Rail, whatever, or bus, or what do you call them? This bus, I've forgotten the name, the most common bus service that go across, or that used to go across the country. Negotiate with those people and see how we can reinstate some of those things, those services to come right downtown. And that will actually help revitalize our city center.
So the Via Rail stop, that's the one you're mentioning, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's part of my downtown revitalization. Okay.
Where would you move it to? Because currently it's like basically by Blatchford, the old airport. And that's essentially within the downtown ward. It's even within the downtown ward district. I know it's a little bit off the beaten path, but how would you, like, what do you want it even further downtown? Because it's already like, 2 or 3 minute drive.
The rail tracks are already there. We don't have to do anything about the rail tracks. I mean, there would just be some coordination between the city transport, the LRT, and the city and the Via Rail. Otherwise, for the buses, it's a matter of talking to the people or the companies that used to run these buses and see the feasibility of doing that again. Of course, everything depends on whether it is going to be viable or not. Okay, so that's my 7th point. And it brings me to the idea of having collaboration between the provinces, or the province, the city, and the federal government. And that's why, as a mayor, I believe one of the best ways to be a leader is to be able to negotiate with other levels of government. If we ignore that, then who are we leading? If we don't talk to the people below us or the people above us, what I see in some governments now today, believe it or not, there are leaders who will neither deal with the municipal level or deal with the federal government. And they are stuck in between, talking to nobody and having problems.
So how would you, let's say you become Mayor Marah and you have to deal with your provincial and your federal counterparts. How are you going to manage, let's call it disagreements or issues where there is no common ground, or more specifically, there's a lot of conflict? Any issue, really.
Okay. One of the first things to do as a mayor, and even during this campaign, I have told people, we should not bring political ideology into this game of civic politics. If you bring political ideologies, then you're creating a divide among us. That's why there shouldn't be any ideological stance in municipal government. If I say I'm going to run as a member for the Legislative Assembly, yes, I have to join one of the political parties. If we do bring ideologies in our municipal elections, then we are dividing ourselves. We only look through the perspective or the eyeglasses of my own ideology, and then the other person looks at the ideology from which they are operating. And so we have divergence of opinions, and we can't work together. And that's what brings problems, and we don't solve the problems. And I may bring one African proverb that says, when 2 elephants are fighting, it is the grass that suffers. So the people we serve, for whom we are working, because either of our ego or our political ideology, we don't want to talk to the other person because they are not part of our own political ideology. Do we all have to think the same way? No, we don't have to, but we can agree on what is good for everybody, quality of life for everybody.
So, I mean, you've talked about ideology and how its role within, but didn't really answer my question of how you would manage that conflict.
No, I said negotiation, but okay, I brought ideology because I don't want us to use ideology. If you look at what is happening in our politics provincially and municipal in municipal politics, It's because of differences of ideology.
I see. And then what I'm trying to get, let's say if you're running in...
Can you confirm that, or can you say, no, it's not true?
I would say it definitely plays a strong role. And what I'm trying to understand is how you would manage that as mayor, right? Let's say you're up against an ideologically conflicting individual in both the provincial and federal government. Yeah. So how are you managing that situation? Yeah.
I will ask to sit down with the people in the provincial government and say, here we are. The federal government advised that the provincial government create municipalities. I read the history. So why municipalities are the ones that are very close to the people? We are the ones that are supposed to solve the everyday, day-to-day problems. So I would tell that person, either in the provincial government or in the federal government, forget about what you believe in ideology, in political ideology. Can we talk about what affects the people of Edmonton? If we do that, we solve their problems. Then you can go out and preach. Whatever you want to preach it to the converted, the people who have the same ideology as you. But when it comes to the city, we should not lose sight of what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to provide the basic necessities, the necessary services. When I wake up in the morning, the first place I go is the bathroom. We all go, take a shower. The water has to be hot. The light has to be on. These are the things we should be thinking about. The roads we drive on, not the ideology. I am this or that, X, Y, Z. And the other one is A, B, C. No, we lose sight of what we're supposed to do. And I mean, I'm talking, I'm not angry. That's how I talk.
You're very passionate.
I'm very passionate about certain things.
So T, you got any questions outside of this platform, or do you want to follow up on that?
I was just gonna say, you cannot follow Mr. Marah on his passion tonight. He has explained the 7 priorities as vehemently as he can, and we see where you are, and we appreciate that. You've explained I don't know, we have 2 minutes. I wanted to ask about the opioid crisis, climate change, economic diversification, homelessness, etc.
Opioid crisis. Let me answer that question.
Well, you want to pick and choose, Mr. Marah. You want to pick and choose. I want to ask about
pick the hardest one, T.
You see, I use the analogy of the human body because it is extremely important we pay attention to other people. We are all one people. Some people become addicts by circumstance we don't know, but that's why we have to study why some people become homeless. We have to apply the specific, know the symptoms, and know why they have what they have. Okay, so in terms of the opioid crisis, I believe very strongly in organized, when you have a place where supervised, Tyson, can you help me out? What's the terminology? When people take needles.
Supervised injection sites?
Injection sites. Yeah. You see, that is caring for people so that they don't go and inject themselves and fall down and die without any supervision or any help. So I'm in favor of that. I do not take any drugs. In fact, if I smell, cannabis, I have a headache. I have a I'm very sensitive to, narcotics. So I don't smoke. I drink as a social drinker, but I still do care for the people who fall victim of those things. And we have to make sure that those people are cared for. That is what is done in Holland, in the whole of Europe. Why can't we do the same? We care for the people. Yes.
Mr. Marah, I want to say thank you so much. We've come to the end of the grill tonight. You've spoken very well. I think Tyson and I will do well to invite you again so we can explore more topics.
Can I make some closing remarks though?
I can give you 30
Can we question them? Are we allowed to question them?
Tyson, you want to spend more time?
I gave myself
1 minute
my hours.
of closing remarks.
Closing remarks, but I reserve the right to question them if I feel fit.
All right, no question. It's 9 o'clock.
Go for it. Closing remarks. 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Tyson and T. I really appreciate this opportunity today. What I want to say to Edmontonians, okay, is that we see around the world, people can change jobs. Just because I have not been in council doesn't mean that I cannot operate, I cannot think. I'm logical. I'm used to working with people. As a teacher, I work with little kids, I work with their parents, I work with the school board, I work with the, with everybody. So that's what I'm used to. And I am somebody, in fact, as a teacher, we have the most adaptable skills. I can move from one job to another. And so I can move from the teaching field to become a mayor. I'll be able to work with everybody. And one thing that I want to make very clear is that in running for a mayor or for any leadership, what is important is the character of the human being. Are they people who work with other people? Okay? If they bring people together. And those are things that I think are my strengths. If you look at my background, I have always worked with other people. We need to work with other people to get things done. Okay? So my leadership will be like what they call servant leader, where I seek the cooperation of everybody. We make decisions together. I'm not going to be there as a head where I can talk down to other people, my colleagues. So my fellow Edmontonians, I want you to consider voting for me as the next mayor of Edmonton. Even though I have not been in council before, realize that I am capable. I have worked at very high levels of society, and I can apply those skills as a mayor of Edmonton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marah.
You're welcome.
You have a follow-up question?
I'm looking for it. I mean, it was pretty well pitched. I mean, yes, anyone can come from a background, become mayor. It all comes down to marketing yourself to enough people, right? So I'm just talking practicalities. But my only closing remarks is thank you, Mr. Marah, for joining us. Yeah, it was interesting hearing what you had to say.
Yeah,
it was my pleasure to join you guys.
I'm just wondering if that pitch was for seniors, Mr. Marah, people in your demographic, or for everybody.
You know what? That is.
You've been in the city since 1981.
Well,
you are a senior. Yeah.
I'm a senior. I'm 66. I'm 66 years old, and I made a remark that I don't want people to socialize us out of existence because we have a lot to offer. My experience in different parts of life, as a business person, as a teacher, as a principal, as a worker as a group home, I sold insurance. I mean, financial advisor. I owned a business. All those experiences do count to make you a better person. And even running as a mayor, I think I have become a better person because I have met more people.
Okay.
So it's not just for seniors, but I'm advocating also to the young people not to suspend their logic and sort of say, not use their common sense and say, because Mr. Marah has not been in council, so he's not fit to be a mayor. No, I want them to think and say, this man is logical. He's, he is forward thinking and he can work with many people. That's what's important.